Hello and welcome back to HistoryCrafts. Today we have a different kind of a video. We're not looking at specifically one topic or person. We're looking at 5 historical facts you probably have not heard about. At least that's what I'm hoping. Our first fact has a lot to do with money, but not the currency itself, or in a spectacular manner. You might be thinking about the dot-com bubble from the early 2000s, house bubble of 2008, or even the crypto bubble nowadays. But what was actually the first spectacular bubble? Come, I'm gonna show you. When the Dutch Republic entered its golden age in the early 1600s, immense wealth was created through trade, and also this signalized the first true investor culture. Tulips, recently brought from the Ottoman Empire, became a luxury status symbol, especially rare broken tulips with flame-like streaks caused by a virus. The major acceleration started in 1634, and the most famous of these tulips was the Semper Augustus. By 1636, 2 years later, a single bulb could sell for 5,000 to 10,000 guilders. And this was enough to buy a canal house in Amsterdam at that time. And if you would translate this now into modern terms, that's roughly around 150,000 euros up to 400,000 euros for one flower bulb. Yeah. Other price varieties included the Viceroy, Admiral van der Eyck, and also Admiral Liefkens. Most trading wasn't even physical, that's the bonkers part about it. People bought future contracts, paper promises for the tulip bulbs, which were still in the ground. So it really is an investment, right, into a single flower. The tulip mania collapsed in February 1637, around 3 years later when it started, when buyers suddenly refused to honor the contracts they made. Prices crashed within days, and most of the speculators actually lost their money. But the Dutch economy quickly stabilized. The tulip mania is considered one of the first documented speculative bubbles, proving that market hype, leverage, and also herd psychology existed long before modern stock exchange. Now is my question to you. If you had that much money, would you invest that into a bulb? I know, I wouldn't. Our next fact in the list also has to do a little bit with money, but it's a little bit different. Have you ever heard that Roman soldiers back in the days were paid in salt? And that this is where the word salary actually comes from? It's a great story, but it is a myth, mostly. So the confusion actually comes from the Latin word salarium, which comes from sal. Sal meaning salt. And salt at that point of time was one of the most valuable resources in the ancient world. And over time, that connection turned into the popular idea that Roman soldiers were literally paid with bags of salt, which is of course not true. Because historically, that's not how it worked. Roman soldiers were paid money, of course, usually silver coins like denarii, let's see here. This pay was called stipendium, and it was issued in installments. However, it came with an important catch. Soldiers had also deductions taken from their pay for food rations, clothing, and also equipment. So, while they were paid actually in coin, much of it immediately went back into the basic survival cost. I mean, it's like nowadays, right? We go work to get salary so we can actually pay our rent, we can pay food, etc., etc. Salt mattered because it kept armies alive on campaigns, and it was also calculated around essential survival resources. And over centuries, the idea of a salt-related allowance was simplified into the myth that soldiers were paid in salt. I mean, imagine nowadays you get paid in potatoes or something, and then you have to go with like 2 kilograms of potatoes to the market, trade for that. That's ridiculous. Gender identity and public gender presentation often feel like a modern conversation. But history actually tells a different story. One of the clearest examples is Chevalier d'Eon, born in 1728, a French soldier, diplomat, and also spy, whose life shows that gender complexity existed openly already centuries ago. In early adulthood, d'Eon lived publicly as a man, serving France as a military officer and diplomat. During the 7 Years' War, d'Eon worked with France's secret intelligence network, the Secret du Roi. In 1755, while on a covert mission to Russia, d'Eon reportedly presented as a woman to gain access to the court of Elizabeth of Russia, helping influence Russia's alignment against Prussia during that time. After the war, d'Eon's gender presentation became public matter. While living in London in the 1760s, d'Eon appeared regularly in female attire, sparking widespread debates so intense that actually bets have been placed on whether, he or she was a man or a woman. But it also wasn't rumor. Diplomatic letters, legal records, and official portraits confirmed d'Eon lived in both male and female social roles. In 1777, the French king Louis XI formally recognized d'Eon as a female. On one condition though. The condition was that they dressed accordingly for the rest of their life. That's it. There was not much. They just accepted her, right? d'Eon lived publicly as a woman until their death in 1810, making their life one of the best documented state-recognized examples of gender nonconformity in early modern Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte is often considered as one of the greatest generals in history, a master of strategy, speed, and decisive battles. Yet his most devastating defeat didn't come from an enemy army. It came from nature itself. When Napoleon invaded Russia in 1812, he marched with around 600,000 soldiers, the so-called Grande Armée, the biggest army Europe had ever seen. And despite major battles like Borodino, where 80,000 to 100,000 men died in combat, the real destruction came from distance, hunger, disease, and of course, winter. Supply lines collapsed, food ran out, and as the army retreated from Moscow, temperatures plunged to minus 30 degrees. And at this point, many soldiers were still wearing summer uniforms. By the end of the campaign, over 500,000 soldiers had died, and most were not killed by Russian weapons, but by the cold, starvation, and exhaustion. Fewer than 100,000 men made it out alive, and turning the invasion into one of history's greatest military disasters. And my question now to you is, if Napoleon was such, a great of a general, why did he march towards Russia? Let his Grande Armée be allowed to be destroyed by distance, logistics, and winter? What do you think? When Europe entered the age of exploration in the 15th and 16th century, kingdoms pushed far beyond their borders to secure access to luxury goods and bypass costly middlemen. One of these luxury goods was nutmeg, because it was believed to cure plague, preserve food, and ward off disease, making it worth many times its weight in gold. Nutmeg grew naturally only on the Banda Islands, a small group within the larger Maluku Islands, also known as the Spice Islands in today's Indonesia. And this extreme geographic limitation turned a tiny island chain into a global flashpoint. European powers clashed over control, and especially England and the Netherlands. The English briefly controlled Run Island, where the Dutch had most of Banda. This led to years of skirmishes, sieges, and also naval clashes. Dutch warships blockaded English positions, while English fleets raided spice convoys. In 1621, Dutch forces killed or enslaved most of these native Bandanese people to secure total control of nutmeg production. The wider Anglo-Dutch War eventually settled the issue. In the Treaty of Breda, England gave up Run Island and accepted Dutch dominance over Banda Island. But the Dutch also had to give up something in return, and that was New Amsterdam, which was then later known, or today, as New York City. And, all of that because a single spice, which I think is very interesting. Do you use actually nutmeg these days? Do you like it? I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something new. If you want to support the channel, please leave a subscription if you haven't already. What other historical figure or topic should I do next? And as always, this is HistoryCrafts, where history crafts itself.